Hi there. My name's Pete Hammond. I'm going to moderate tonight. How many people just saw Mad Max Fury Road for the first time? I figured that. You're all back for another viewing, right? Yeah. How did you like it? Well, you're here on the right night. Please welcome. He's been nominated for so many awards already this year, including a Golden Globe for Best Director, Best Picture, 13 Critics' Choice nominations. That's the group I vote in. He's nominated for Best Director. The movie itself has just been nominated for the Editors Award, the Editors Guild Award, the Sound Awards, the Cinematography, you name it. PGA Producer of the Year. So many things and so well deserved. Please welcome George Miller. People have been waiting 30 years for another Mad Max, so a long time, you know, for you to bring this back, which is like, this is pretty amazing that after all this time you revisited this thing, which was your first film, Mad Max, actually.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Mad Max was. I made a couple of shorts, but sort of in those days, you know, you're daring when you're young. We said, okay, let's try a feature. I didn't realise it would be so tough, but we managed to do it, and it's still just as tough now.
Did you have any idea, though, when you started it all those years ago in 1979, you know, or 78, whenever you started filming it, with Mel Gibson in the lead, that this would lead to this kind of, I don't know, film series that just goes on and on and on?
Yeah, no, it was a very low budget film. As I said, it was, I never really, I sort of taught myself to make films. In Australia, in the 70s, there really wasn't a fully professional film industry. You didn't sort of have a career. And to be honest, it was so hard to make that I didn't think it would be releasable. I didn't. And what was really interesting is, and probably the best thing that ever happened, is that we ran out of money to edit it. And in those days, believe it or not, it was a celluloid. And I taught myself to edit. And I worked on it while Byron Kennedy, my partner, was cutting the sound in. We had a friend who lent us an apartment. He cut the sound in the lounge. I cut the movie in the kitchen, and it was really interesting because for 9 months I was confronted with all of my mistakes. It was just me, and it was just a little conversation I had. Why did I do that? Why did I do this? And so by the time I got together, I was just really happy that people released it, and then it started to do really well around the world. But deep down, I knew that I had a long way to go to sort of really learn about filmmaking. So by the time that was the reason why we did the second one. By the time we had a chance to do another one, there was an opportunity to do all the things I was able to do, or apply all the things I had before. And the key thing was that the second film, I realised that all filmmaking is tough. It never goes the way you want it to go. The first film felt like walking a big dog, and you wanted to go one way and it dragged you off the other way. And the second one, I knew that you got to ride that dog to get to the end. So that's. So I really didn't expect to make, or to have the opportunity to make a film all these years later. And this was very hard to get going because it was greenlit 3 times at 3 different studios, and something always got in the way.
It took 10 years, right, to even get it going.
Yeah.
Even with the history of Mad Max, there was like this incredible thing that you hear about new movies and things that aren't tried, but something like this that has been a worldwide smash on several films.
Well, we were to do it, well, it would be close to 15 years ago now. And then when 9/11 happened, the American dollar crashed against the Australian dollar, and we lost 25% of our budget overnight. We couldn't regroup, so I went up to do Happy Feet. That took a long time. It's an animation. Then we tried to get it going again. We recast with Tom and Charlize, and then we were about to shoot in Australia, and unprecedented rains came. It hadn't rained for 15 years in the south of Australia, in Broken Hill. And what was flat, red earth, meant to be the wasteland, was now flowers at this time. And the great salt lakes, the big salt lakes were full of pelicans and fish and frogs. So that wasn't the wasteland. So Warner's to the credit said, okay, wait, let's wait for a year and see if it dries out. It didn't, so we moved all the way to the west coast of Africa. So it kept on getting delayed, but somehow, as I said, you couldn't kill it with the stick. It kept on coming back, and we eventually got the movie made.
I have to, before we go on and talk more about this film, I have to say, because I'm really curious about it, and I've talked to you before, but when you had Happy Feet, for which you won an Oscar, Best Animated Feature, and Babe, for which, was nominated for Best Picture, and the screenplay, and of course Lorenzo's all. You did these wildly different movies than what you had started with Mad Max. You went a completely different direction. Was that because these were so tough, or you just wanted to go somewhere else?
It wasn't the toughest. I've always drawn by curiosity, and I don't make many films, so a film has to really drag me towards, or a story has to really drag me in. And we did some miniseries television down in Australia because I realised I really had to learn to make films properly and to work with actors, and it was great to produce for other directors in television. And I didn't realise that the reason I made the Babe and the Happy Feet movies is that I had kids, and when you have kids, you don't get out much anymore, and you're watching over and over again family movies. So my head was primed for that. And when I saw stories that you could tell that that's what happened. Now my kids are grown up, and so it'll get fun to go back to a bad Max. It's not. It's true. But I'm always also like story is king, but also technology was always interesting. And Babe, it took us. It was just at the beginning of the digital age, and and to be able to make the pig talk was interesting, and more particularly when Andrew Leslie, who shot the Babe movies, who went on to shoot The Lord of the Rings, when he showed me the first motion capture of Gollum, I suddenly thought, we could make these penguins dance. And that's how that happened. So very, very technologically driven. And one of the exciting things about this movie, too, was to do an action movie with this digital technology where the cameras were way smaller, that you were churning through lots and lots of celluloid. You could put basically it's got a card that can record for 40 minutes and the small cameras. You had so much more technology to work with, and that was exciting.
I have to say though that Babe is the best family film I've ever seen. It really is. It was, whatever the technology is, ultimately you have to have the content. And that movie was just like so moving, and they don't nominate movies like that for Best Picture unless you've got something special. So.
Yeah, just to make it clear, it's not the technology that drives it, but when you can use new tools and then something feels fresh. But yeah, the moment that was from a book written by a pig farmer in England, Dick King Smith. And when he first read the book, there was something very authentic about it. He started writing for children relatively late, and in his life, but it felt to me like he was the farmer, and he was almost relating to the animals in that way. So it was there in the original material.
Now, this movie, Mad Max Fury Road, came out, I think I remember the exact date, May 15th, and in America at least. And normally, in that circumstance, it doesn't live on to get all these awards at the end of the year. This clearly had an impact beyond, in the genre, in the action genre. There was something going on here. And did you have any idea that it would have this kind of ongoing reception, that this kind of crowd would be here, a full house in January, still watching this movie on a movie screen, which is so cool?
No, I honestly didn't. You know, the fact that it's now 2016 and we're still talking about it, I must say, it gives me a lot of gratification that that's happened, because I didn't expect it to happen. It's obviously an action movie, one long chase, but one of the things we definitely tried to do, it could become very monotonous, was to put as much stuff underneath, you know, as I like to say, as much iceberg under the tip, as much material in there, and see how much story you can pick up on the run. And to the extent that we succeeded, you know, that's really gratifying, because people are picking up all the stuff that we talked about when we were writing and when we were shooting and editing, and they picked it up. And I didn't know that that would happen. You don't know until it's all together. And I must say, when people ask me, you know, what sort of movies you like, I often say they're the movies that follow me the longest out of the cinema. And if you've forgotten it by the time you go to the car park, it's not such a good movie. It could be a good movie, but something about it does get in under your skin. And those movies, that we all have our own list of them, that you never forget. Moments, the first time you see them, you just never forget. They're with you. You can always remember moments or scenes or the whole movie. And I'd like to think that this is an indication that Fury Road at least is going to stay around a little longer. At least I hope it does, because people come up to me and show me the tattoos they have. And I feel really guilty when you see a young person with really, you know, fine skin and no other tattoos, and they're like, oh, what a lovely day, and a scene of Lee Morton's face, or Nazi's face, or Furiosa's face. I think, oh boy, I don't know, I've got to get tattoo removal going very quickly, or at least it's worth the effort. I must say, I'm very humbled when I see that.
I was sitting at the AFI luncheon, the American Film Institute luncheon, which honors the 10 best films of the year that they've chosen, and this was one of them. And they showed the clip, and the audience, you know, you just sort of, whoa, the reaction was amazing. You know, with all those movies this year, too, up there on the screen to see this picture, you know, after all these years that you spent with Mad Max, must mean something.
Oh, yes, it does. To see people responding. I mean, you know, I go to the movies like this to sit together with people you don't know, and sort of sit back in your seat and get sucked up into the screen. It's a very, it's a great experience. I mean, you know, all filmmakers, they basically learn by watching other movies, and that movie experience is very special. I mean, it's one thing to watch stuff on the screen at home. You can have some amazing experiences. You know, one of the great pleasures of being at the AFI lunch today is I'm a very big fan of, like the rest of the world, of Breaking Bad, and I sat down with Vince Gilligan and his whole cohort. They were all there, and they invited me over for a drink. We had you know, a really nice time, and they were talking about Better Call Saul. Sorry, what's it called? Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul
Yeah, but Better Call
is
Saul.
the sequel to Breaking Bad.
Which I hadn't time to see, but there was a clip, and the audience laughed today at the clip, and they said, "Well, we never get to see the audience laugh because they're watching it at home. It's the first time they watched that in front of an audience." It was about a minute or two, the clip, and they laughed, and I realised that's, you know, so to see people respond to this is really great.
Now, I'm going to give them a chance to ask questions, but I've got to ask you two things about the casting, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Because you're taking a series Mel Gibson is absolutely, iconically known for, and you have to bring in a new actor. So what was that process like in casting Tom Hardy to take over this franchise, as it were?
Well, Tom had that, Tom had that quality that Mel had when he walked through the door 30 years ago. I knew they were both really good actors. Mel was straight out of the National Drama School. He'd be just doing Shakespeare, and Tom is a creature of the theatre as well. And he had that, for want of a better notion, a kind of animal magnetism, a kind of immediate accessibility at the same time that there's something sort of dangerous and mysterious about him. And Mel had that. It was a sort of a male energy. Someone asked me today about the mask he wore, and I realized one of the things about that was that it was almost a reveal of the new Max. He gets swept up into the Furiosa story and so on, and it's almost a reveal of Max. At least that was my theory at the time. And then oh, damn. So everyone thinks talks about this idea, this notion that he's going to cover his face all the time. It wasn't. Anyway, that was really, really interesting to do that. To do it, because it's always a risk. But Mel, after he hit all that turbulence in his life, that was one thing. But also, as time went on, Tom was 6 weeks old when we shot the first man. Oh. And Mel has just turned 60. I just saw. Wow. So it's not a kind of an unforgiven about an old road warrior. It's meant to be the same character.
And then, of course, you have a brand new character in this, which I think is groundbreaking. You have Charlize Theron, who just kicks ass all through this movie. She's so fantastic in this one. And, you rarely see that in action pictures. I can remember Sigourney Weaver and Aliens and a few others, but I mean, it's not that often, and this is a really strong female empowerment role, I thought.
Yeah, that was in the initial story, that these 5 wives needed a road warrior, and it couldn't be a man stealing 5 wives from a tyrant. But the only actor I thought about was Charlize, and there's something about her stature as physically and as a person, and her discipline. I mean, she was a very accomplished ballet dancer when she was young. She brings all that discipline with her. And she's just, I spent so long in the cutting room watching her with the shaved hair and everything like that. I think that's Charlize, the one with the blonde hair and the Dior. That's not Charlize. That's some fraud, because I can't get Furiosa out of my head. At least I stayed with, being with it so long, or her version of it so long.
Now, you guys, got any questions out there? Okay, right.
First, I want to say I love the movie. Who is the little kid that Max keeps seeing in the visions?
Who's the little kid that Max keeps seeing in the vision?
A good question. In my mind, and people can interpret it how they like, it's not. In the first movie, he lost his son, who's a little toddler. It's not that. It's a child who he encountered in the years before, almost became another version of his family, and in the way that it happens to Max, in my mind, he wasn't there when she needed him, and that's one of the things. When he finds he connects with another human being, it always leads to something bad happening in the wasteland. So he tries to avoid any connection, and that was the idea behind that. And there's a backstory to that which which we might be able to tell that story one day.
I was just thinking, are we done with Mad Max? No.
Well, the one thing about it taking so long, and part of the process, and ultimately I think what helps the movie work, otherwise it would be very chaotic, was that we had to create backstories for absolutely everything. And so we did for all the characters and the world and how the world was created, and even the doof warrior with the guitar. I mean, in my mind, I know exactly how a blind man who could only play the guitar survived the wasteland. And so you have all these backstories. You have to, and not only that, where each vehicle came from, how the Citadel was formed, where they have all the water, what Gastown is, what the Bullet Fund is, all of that is, everyone who worked on the design of the film, all the actors, everyone had to know about that world, even though it's only hinted at on the screen. So stories naturally arose out of that. So we had the story.
Got some more? Yeah, right there.
Hi. My name is Steve. Thank you so much for making this movie. It's incredible, and I think we all agree with that. So, but this is my friend Tom. He loves this movie. He couldn't be here tonight, but he's obsessed with Babe, Pig in the City. So he wanted me to ask a question about that, and the only thing I could think of was, would you consider telling the story of the sentient animals that live in the world of Mad Max? Because we both thought that would be amazing.
Would I consider telling the story of the sentient animals who inhabit world Mad Max?
Yeah.
But all the animals, they're nomad. There's only crows. They're the only animals. And lizards. You mean that they talk?
Yeah, like Babe, or like have to be, you have like, whatever mutated wallabies or whatever.
Well, that's a better story than the ones I've got. That's great. Sadly in this world, there's no trees, and well, there's one tree really we see, and it's dead, and you don't see, animals. You see human animals. Humans treated as animals. Everyone's a commodity, and somehow I feel that a lot of people survived eating. If there was a dog, unless you're in a privileged position like in the Citadel or somewhere, you're unlikely to have a dog because it would have been eaten and so on. But look, I'll definitely think about it. Tell your friend. I'll think about it.
All right, so let's someone for the back. You're standing up, so you're going to ask it anyway.
So you've created some of the most iconic vehicles in film today. As a Wasteland Weekend vehicle builder, I just want to know what do you look for in a vehicle to build, with a design? Where do you find a company that's going to build something like this?
Yeah.
You're not going to go to your regular mechanic shop or a motorsports company and have something like this made.
Everything in this film was made from found objects repurposed, and we figured out that the modern car with microprocessors and airbags and all of that sort of stuff and crumple technology would not be something that would survive, or at least be functional. So it's an older technology which is able to be repaired. So we went for the older vehicles, and according to who the characters were, because in many ways they're an extension of their wardrobe, like the Eagle Horse, the Morton's big vehicle, the double Cadillac, was literally finding two Cadillacs and fusing them together and creating those big wheels. And there was a real V16 engine that the mechanics put together. So, and it was so loud. So it was all, that was one of the difficult things in this movie. To actually, you couldn't really talk to the actors or to the camera or whatever. A lot was done by signals. A lot of people had earwigs in, and you could hear something, but it wasn't a quiet set, as it were. And so I hope that answers it. And we just had this very, skilled and passionate group of mechanics, and they just put all these things together. Does that answer your question? There's like no local shopping done to it. You sort of make it up. And one of the main things was to make sure that they were actually functional. A lot of time was spent making them safe and functional, but they all had to be based on something existing and an older technology. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Perfect, right? All right. There's an incredible car culture in Australia, though, right?
Yeah, like there is there, but we've got big wide roads. I mean, most people live on the coastal cities, and then there's lots of big wide roads, and yeah, there's definitely a car culture.
Cool. Now, right up there, yes, that's you. Hi.
Oh, hi. Even in being like an established director, what was the most difficult obstacle for you to accomplish finishing the film?
Just the physicality of the film. I mean, shooting out there with real people in a real desert, and in a remote location, and just the biggest thing was the stunts. We had a really great rigging crew, special effects crew, stunt crew, who were very, very prepared. But when you're shooting for so long, each day is not just one stunt, but many, many stunts. And just the sheer arduous, it was pretty arduous, but you really, really couldn't let that get in the way of safety. And everyone had to be really on top of it. The cast, the crew, the stunt crew. And there were some things which I thought we couldn't do for real, that we ended up doing for real. And that was really good. Is that what you mean? Just the physical nature of it? But then I say that getting the film and then putting all the pieces together, and that fell to Margaret Sixel, the editor, because it's like music, it's like visual music. And you're going through exactly the same process that a composer would be going through. Finding the little bits, very strong causal relationship, one shot to the next, one sequence to the next one, or one passage to the next, and really paying attention to avoiding repetition, and just putting the whole putting all the pieces of the jigsaw, the Rubik cube together. It was like a massive Rubik cube. That was difficult.
Did you have in your shot list, did you know exactly what you were going to shoot on set, or was it kind of spontaneous when you got to set?
Oh no, it was the whole film initially was storyboarded and conceived as a storyboard. The first iteration of the movie was a storyboard around a room where I worked with three really great storyboard artists, and Brendan McCarthy, who's a great artist, and we devised the story together, and by drawing the pictures, that became the production document, because camera and cast and stunt crew and everybody knew the relationship, the spatial relationship of where the vehicles were, where the characters were, what they were doing, and where the camera would be. So that had to be planned in great detail. And then to do some of those stunts, like those guys on the poles, the pole cats, that took a lot of preparation. It wasn't spontaneous. But having done all of that, when you're on the set, and whenever you've got on the storyboard, if something way more interesting presents itself, of course you're going to go for that. The storyboard is a blueprint, but you don't stick to it rigidly. You respond to what's actually there. And there's little moments of improvisation here and there, things that the actors bring to it. But that thing had to be really planned, otherwise it could have gone really, really badly.
And give a big shout out to your cinematographer, this is the best of you. Amazing cinematographer.
Yeah, John Seal. John is he came out of retirement to do this movie, and he did. He was like, John was, first of all, he was a great operator. Like, so he really loved working the camera. But then he took on lighting. He did some great movies in Australia, and then he done a lot of stuff around the world. Rain Man, the first Harry Potter. He's done so many movies.
He's won a couple of Oscars. For
Yeah. And anyway, he's a great sailor. He built a beautiful boat. With his own hands. He's just one of those people who loves doing things like that. And he was about to go sailing, and we called him, and his wife said to John, you better come to the phone. I think we're going to put off the sailing trip because he's prepared to do it. And I worked with him many years ago on Lorenzo's Oil, and I just forgot that we got older, and he was there operating on top of that war rig, and underneath it, and in the cabin, and just everywhere. And he turned 70 on the movie, and I thought that he's just a very physical guy, a fantastic eye, and really great with the cast and crew. These guys are very important and really wonderful, relaxed, very disciplined leadership of the crew to keep everyone calm, particularly when the going gets tough, as it were. And he brings it all, and he's always very cheerful. But the moment he finished the movie, he got in his boat, and he and Louise, his wife, they sailed up the Australian Pacific coast, and kept sending me pictures on the way back.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. We're out of time, but they gave me one more, so I'm going to because you have so many hands up here. So who's got the best question? You do? You're going to get it right there.
I can't find any information on the internet about this. To me, the most unique part of the visual style of this movie is that every time it gets crazy, frames start dropping out of it, like you sped it up in post, and I am so curious if you planned that from the beginning, or if in the edit you realized these need to move faster.
It's very perceptive. We did drop once you it's like music. Once you start a rhythm, there's almost a visual beat to it. You did it accidentally in Road Warrior, where it almost is where you can only double the speed. So if you shot at 24 frames, in this case, we were able to vary the speed somewhat, and there were frames drop. I kind of liked the effect because it gave that slight staccato effect. I think when you first saw Janusz Kaminski in Saving Private Ryan, in the way that he shifted the shutter angle so it looked like those old World War II cameras. That sort of effect was really, really interesting, and it crept into a lot of filmmaking. And we didn't have that, so in some cases we didn't. So the answer, great question. The answer is part of it was deliberate, and part of it was just a result of speeding up an artifact. Does that help? Yeah.
Just a quick question. I know Mel Gibson came to the premiere of this, because I remember that happening. What did he say?
Well, it's not so much what he said. I mean, I didn't know he'd be there, and we sat next to each other. And there was Tom just behind us. And it's not so much what he said, but he kept on digging me in the ribs when he saw something that he liked. And then he was about to, he was preparing to do a film, which he's just finished shooting down in Australia, and kept asking him about crews or whatever. And I knew, but because he's someone who, he's very, very open, and I knew by the way he was chuckling and laughing and digging me in the ribs, like saying well done, that I knew he was enjoying the movie. So I didn't mind getting that. And when it finished, he was very warm in his praise. So it was good because one thing Mel is a really, really great director. I mean, look at Apocalypse, Braveheart, and he really is one of those guys who knows how to tell a story and be very cinematic about it. I mean, even though he's very verbal, as I said, he just loves Shakespeare or whatever, he's not looking for the words so much.
So good. Well, congratulations, George Miller. Terrific film. Congratulations.